But the first three verses are a nice introduction. Vayakhel Moshe kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Moshe gathers the entire congregation of Israel. Vayomer lehem, he says to them, Eila advorim asher tziv Hashem lasos asam. This is what Hashem has commanded you to do. Sheishes yomim te'aseh malacha. For 6 days, you should consider your work to be done. Your work gets done. It doesn't say you do the work, but rather the work may be done. Te'aseh. Not that you do the work. It doesn't say taseh, but te'aseh. V'yom hashvi'i Elochem kodesh. And the 7th day is a holy day, Shabbat Shabbaton. A real Shabbos L'Hashem. Whoever does work on that day will be put to death. And then it gives you one example. Lo savaro eish b'chol moshvosechem b'yom HaShabbos. Do not burn any fire in all your habitations on Shabbos. From there, then it moves on and says, Pasuk Dav, Vayomer Moshe called us b'nei Yisrael Amor. Zeh davar shetzivah Hashem Amor. Then Moshe says to the entire Jewish people, this is what Hashem commanded. And now for the first time, even though we've heard about it many times, Chu meitchem truma l'Hashem, kol nediv libo yivyehu es trumas Hashem sof v'chesed v'nechoshes. Take from yourselves a truma for Hashem. All those who are philanthropic of heart, yivyehu, bring it a trumas Hashem, a truma to Hashem, gold, silver, etc. And then it goes on and on, the gifts that you have to give. This is the first time, even though Moshe had been instructed by Hashem previously, this is the first time that Moshe is in fact giving the command over to the Jewish people. Okay, so the question that the rabbis ask over here is, why are we being told anything about Shabbos? Is we have to know about the building of the Mishkan. We've been talking about the Mishkan. What Shabbos have to do with anything? So Rashi right away comes forth in the second source and says, Moshe first told the prohibition of working on the Shabbos before the commandment of the construction of the Mishkan to teach us that the work of the Mishkan does not override the Shabbos. You might think building the Mishkan is such an important thing. We want to get it done so fast to bring down the divine presence that I can even work on Shabbos to build the Mishkan. I might think that's so important. So therefore, right away, the first thing it says, Shabbos, then the Mishkan. Don't build a Mishkan on Shabbos. That is what Rashi says. So there's a couple of questions that need to be asked. Number one, if you want to teach us that, just say like this. Say like this. It should say that 6 days of the week, build the Mishkan, and on the 7th, rest. Okay. Talk about building the Mishkan, say build it 6 days, and don't build it on the 7th. Plain and simple. It doesn't give us all the introduction about Shabbos. Right? Now, what's most interesting is when we go earlier, the third source, which is last week's Parsha of Parshas Kisisa, when Hashem commands Moshe, look what Hashem tells Moshe. It's a whole long thing. I brought you the whole thing over there. But if you look, Hashem is saying, listen, I've called Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, from the tribe of Yehuda. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God and wisdom and understanding and knowledge and all kinds of workmanship, etc., etc. And I gave him an assistant, Aholiav, to work. And then he says, and this is the work that I'm giving him. And then from verse 7 all the way through 12, he tells him what you got to do, what you got to make to build a Mishkan. Then all of a sudden, in verse 13, it says, oh yeah, and you got to keep the Shabbos. So when Hashem told Moshe building the Mishkan in the context of Shabbos, he first told him to build the Mishkan, and then he told him about the mitzvah of Shabbos. Over here, Moshe is telling Jewish people the mitzvah of Shabbos, and then he's telling them the mitzvah of building the Mishkan. So why is Moshe reversing the order? And more than that, I could ask a third question is, why do we need to describe this mitzvah at all? We already know this mitzvah from the 10 Commandments. In the 10 Commandments, we've already been told about this mitzvah. So what do I need to explain this mitzvah again for? Okay, and there's one more question. If you look back on that sheet at the bottom when I brought you that pasuk, it's when Hashem says take from the Jews, that from the first source, the 5th line, I got it in Hebrew there on the bottom. It says, K'hu me'itchem truma. Take from yourselves a truma l'Hashem. Kol nediv libo. Anyone for the generous heart. Yivi'eha. Yivi'eha. Bring it. Now, it really shouldn't say that. The commentators say it should say, Yavi es trumas Hashem. Bring the truma. It just should have said, really look carefully, I'm being a little particular, but you'll see why. It says, take from them a truma for Hashem, every philanthropic heart, and what should be the next three words? It should say, what? Yavi es trumas Hashem. Bring the trumas Hashem. Yiviyeha, what does Yiviyeha mean? Alone. What's the word Yiviyeha mean?
What? Bring that.
Yiviyeha means bring it.
Right.
So what it really would be meaning, if I translate it exactly, bring it, the truma for Hashem. What's the it? The it is the truma for Hashem. It's just you said, Yavi, yes, truma Hashem, bring the truma Hashem. Why? Bring it, the truma Hashem? That's extra. So we'll see, we'll talk about this. But these are a number of questions in the beginning of this week's parsha. Okay. Now, let's backtrack. Let's turn the page. I'm going to backtrack. I'm going to backtrack to source number 6. King Solomon says, Tnu chacham vayech manod. Give to a wise man and he will get wise men. And the Medrash has a very interesting discussion. It says, this is a reference to Betzalel. Betzalel, the person who built the Mishkan. It says, when Hashem told Moshe to make the Mishkan, so Moshe now comes to Betzalel and told him the command of what to do. And if you look back, we had before, on the page before, on source 3, he gave him the commandment. He started, the first thing was the commandment, verse 7, he told him to build the tent of meeting. First build the Mishkan. Look at 7, verse 7. Moshe told Betzalel, what should you build? The tent of meeting, that means the Ohel Moed, the Mishkan, then the ark, and then the rest. Moshe said to him, first build the structure of the Mishkan, and the next thing he did was the furniture, and specifically the ark. Okay? So now go back to the Medrash in source 6. So Moshe told him, first build the Mishkan, then the ark. So Betzalel says, what's the purpose of this Mishkan? And Moshe said, in order that Hashem should rest his Shekhinah upon the Jewish people. So then Betzalel, so where's the Torah going to be kept? He says, listen, when we first make the Mishkan, then we'll make the ark, and we'll put the Torah in the ark. To which Betzalel responded, wait a minute, it's not fitting for our Torah to be without a home. So let's first make the ark, and then make the Mishkan. And therefore later the Torah says, and Betzalel made the ark, as if to say it was because of him that the ark was made first before the Mishkan. So we see there was a debate between Moshe and Betzalel, what to do first. You already have the 10 commandments. They've been brought down. Those are heavy commandments. I don't know where they were right now, because there was no tabernacle yet. Maybe Moshe had them folded up in some nice blankets, and they were somewhere in his tent. Now we have to build a sanctuary. We have to build an ark. So Moshe says to Betzalel, "Go build a sanctuary, and then we'll build the ark." And Betzalel says, "What are you talking about? Where's the Torah going to be till then? Build the ark first, then the sanctuary." And indeed, that's what happened. They built the ark first, and then the sanctuary. So we got to understand what was the difference between Moshe and Betzalel. Why did Moshe think first to do the Mishkan and then the ark? And why did Betzalel say, no, we'll do the ark and then the Mishkan? What was going on in the debate over here? It should be one way. What's he arguing about? So the following, that's a question. So the following, what I'm going to tell you today, is 3 different pieces of the Shem Mishmuel in this week's Parsha, Sagat Shava Rabbi. And he says some beautiful, beautiful insights over here. And he starts with a verse from Mishlei in source number 7 that says, Kol derech ish yashor be'einav, every way of man is right in his own eyes, v'tochan libos Hashem, but Hashem weighs the hearts. What does that mean? It means that every person has a different kind of neshama. We all have holy neshamas, but everyone's neshama is a little bit different because we all have a different mission in life. We have different potentials in order to accomplish that mission. And therefore, it could very well be that two different people can come up with two totally different answers to a problem, and they'll both be right. Could have a problem, two people come up with two different solutions, and they're both correct. How can they both be correct? Because each one is looking at it through his potentials, and with his approach, that's the right thing to do. Hillel and Shammai. Hillel looked at everything through the approach of chesed, kindness. Shammai looked at everything through the approach of gvura, of control. They're both right. And based on the way they approach things, they look at things differently. So that's what it means. God gave us, every man is right in his own eyes. Listen, I see it this way, and that's correct, because based on the neshama that you have, and Hashem knows what's appropriate from each person, because Hashem knows what his root soul is, what he should be doing. So the discussion, the argument between Bezalel and Moshe was really an argument that defined the different souls that Moshe and Bezalel had. Let me explain. There's a dramatic difference between the life and the spiritual development of Bezalel and that of Moshe. The Zohar explains that Moshe really didn't receive his first significant revelation of Hashem and everything about Hashem until Moshe by the burning bush was 80 years old. Till he was 80 years old, Hashem didn't say anything to him. So the question is, what was Moshe doing till he was 80 years old? So the rabbis explain that Moshe was preparing himself to be the best person he could do. Because we all know that God creates us with a lot of negative aspects. And our job is to remove all the negative qualities that are within us. You know, when a baby is born, they say a baby is born with a clenched fist. Comes to the world, they can look at a baby next time they're born. Clenched fist, as if to say, it's mine. Everything's mine. We come into the world as selfish people. We come to the world as narcissistic beings. And a lot of other negative qualities, because we're very animalistic. Our job in life is to remove those negative qualities until we become a worthy receptacle for beautiful things in this world, for the divine presence to rest within ourselves. So what was Moshe doing for 80 years? For 80 years he was cleaning up and making room, so when that now he didn't know it was going to come, but when that designated moment would come and God would reveal himself to Moshe, there'd be a clean, open vessel to have the total experience of God revealing himself to Moshe. Moshe didn't know that was happening, but he was working on himself to make him the best person he could be. This is before he got any Torah yet. But this is before Hashem comes to him. That was Moshe's approach. Bezalel, on the other hand, source number 8 tells us, Bezalel, by the age of 13, he was very young when he built this Mishkan. He was an extremely big Talmid Chacham. He knew all the mystical concepts between each and every letter, and how the letters created the entire world, and he would know how to use this for the building of the Mishkan. So therefore, he knew the deepest secrets of Torah by the time he was bar mitzvah. So what's the difference between Moshe and Bezalel? The answer is Moshe was a very unique individual. And it was possible for him, because of the dynamics of his neshama, that he could concentrate on removing from himself all negative aspects before introducing the holiness and the wisdom of the Torah. That's how powerful of a neshama that Moshe had. He had such a powerful leaning and powerful aspirations and strivings towards Hashem that he spent the first 80 years of his life contending with what we call in Psalms sur meirah, stay away from evil. King David says, if you want to be a person that lives long, right, at the end of the passage it says sur meirah v'asei tov, stay away from evil and do good. So what did he do? It's like, you want to write on a blackboard. You want to write some good stuff on a blackboard, but there's already stuff on the blackboard. So if I'm going to write now a lesson on top of that blackboard, it's going to be a mess. So what do you got to do? First you got to clean the blackboard. And when it's all clean, now it's ready for something to be put on it. Now that really is the best way to do things. clean the blackboard, and then put things on it. Now, now that is an incredibly difficult way to do things, right? But it is possible. It was possible for Moshe without even introducing any Torah into his life, without any spiritual holiness of Torah in his life. We can't understand how this could be done, but Moshe could do it because he had such an incredible neshama that he would be able to clean out all the schmutz that was left inside of him. And when it was time to hear Hashem, to hear his Torah, that's why Moshe was so excellent in giving over the Torah. There wasn't one drop of negativity in terms of character, so therefore he could receive the Torah in a perfect way and give it over in a perfect way. That was Moshe. That was his approach. So if we would have to explain it in a metaphoric way, it's first build the Mishkan, and then build the Aron. Build the Mishkan and the Ark. Because what is the concept of a Mishkan? The Mishkan really is a personification of the human being. If we'd have time, we'd go through every one of the utensils in the Mishkan, and the whole Mishkan structure itself. It really is replicating a human being. The fact that the Mishkan was made out of trees, atzei shitim omdim. The Mishkan was primarily made out of wood, made out of trees. And we know that the Torah says, Ha'adam eitz hasadeh, man is the tree of the field. So the Mishkan really was a personification of the perfection of the human being. Making a perfect Mishkan really is saying you got to make yourself into a perfect person. How? By removing all the evil. So Moshe, when he gave over the command to Betzalel, he said, Betzalel, first build the Mishkan. What we should do is first build the person up into the person he's supposed to be. How? By removing all the junk in the system. Then we'll take the Torah, we'll build an ark. Now we'll introduce Torah to a beautifully refined system. So Moshe was just, his opinion was only mirroring how he related to Avodas Hashem. He understood Avodas Hashem as Sur Meirah, get rid of the evil, make a beautiful Mishkan that is pure and holy receptacle. That's what you want. You have to have a good receptacle that's clean. Then Moshe, when he was 80 years old, he was a clean receptacle. God gave him the Torah, and then that Torah comes into a clean, beautiful receptacle. Same thing. Build a Mishkan, build yourself up, then put the ark in and let Torah become part of your life. Which Betzalel turned around and said, no. He says, Moshe, that might have been good for you, but most of us do not possess within our neshama enough energy that independently, without any holy experiences or inspiration, they'll be able to tackle that cleansing process. That Yetzer Hara is a really tricky dude. And to push that Yetzer Hara out of ourselves, to get rid of all the negative things without a strong dose of positive Torah, it's not going to work. And Betzalel's life was the opposite. Betzalel says, you know what he first do? Like the Hasidim, it was really the beginning of the machlokas between the Hasidim and the non-Hasidim. Moshe being the non-Chassid and Betzalel being the Chassid. Because how did the Baal Shem Tov interpret the pasuk Sur Meirah V'asei Tov? The conventional understanding is Sur Meirah, remove the evil, V'asei Tov, and then do good. While the Baal Shem Tov explains it, no, Sur Meirah, stay away from evil. How? By Asei Tov. Do the good, and the good will get rid of the evil. Right? So that's what Betzalel was saying us. Most of us don't have such big neshamas like Moshe Rabbeinu that can clean out the evil by itself. He said rather, jump into the Torah, jump into the holiness, go in head over heels. And even though you're not ready, even though you're not worthy, even though you haven't cleansed yourself, the holiness of the Torah will slowly clean you out and will motivate you to cleanse yourself out. And that was Betzalel's life, was a carbon copy of that. He threw himself into Torah at a very young age, and through his wisdom and holiness, that moved him along of cleansing to clean out his system. Therefore, what's the metaphor for him? First build the ark. First build up Torah inside of yourself, and then build the Mishkan. Then build the tabernacle. Then the receptacle will be clean. Now you might think that maybe it's hypocritical. First I have to develop ethically, morally, and when I'm finished with that job after 500 years, then I'll start learning a little bit of Torah. Betzalel said, no, that ain't going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. On our own, we don't have enough power to push out these Yetzer Haras. We have to first learn Torah, and slowly, they'll give us the motivation to cleanse ourselves. So those were the two approaches. You hear? The two approaches. Who won the argument? As far as we're concerned. Of course, Moshe's approach was good for Moshe. But how many people in the world are like Moshe besides Moshe? Nobody. How many people are more like Bezalel? We are. And therefore, Bezalel, as far as we're concerned, he won the argument. And we learned for all generations that a person approaching Avodas Hashem is not to first totally concentrate on removing all the negative things of the person. Of course, we're not telling you to ignore them. We know people have shortcomings, and we want to remove them. But the truth is, a person first has to say to himself, first thing I'm going to what? I'm going to... Don't say, first I'm going to clean myself up. I'm going to make myself a good person. Then I'm going to meet with the rabbi. Then I'm going to learn Torah. That's not a successful approach. We hold like Bezalel. First build the ark. Then build a Mishkan. Expose yourself to the wisdom of Torah, the holiness of Torah, the experience of the Jewish life, and that will afford you enough motivation to slowly go through a cleansing process. So that's point number one. So now you understand that we first build the ark, then we build the Mishkan. So for practical purposes, a person wants to become a better Jew, start with learning Torah. You learn the Torah, the beauty of the Torah will illuminate and motivate you to take care and to clean up your act. Sur me'ra, how? Asay tov. Do good. The Torah will tell you what to do. The wisdom will get inside of you. You'll do what the mitzvahs say, and that will give you the motivation to be the better Jew. But you got to do it with gusto and excitement, not with, I'd rather not be doing this. If you do it that way, that will help you. That's point number one. But we see this will now manifest itself in all kinds of ways. This idea will still have many, many, many applications. How is that? So let's take a look now at source number 9. Source number 9 brings a medrash, or a Gemara rather. The Gemara says, we've mentioned this concept of this Gemara before, but in different contexts. Let's say a guy is in the desert, he gets lost, and not only is he lost, but he loses track of time. He doesn't know what day of the week it is. You just don't know what day of the week it is. So you got to keep Shabbos. So how are you going to keep Shabbos if you don't know what day of the week it is? So one rabbi says, you know what you do? You don't know what day it is? You say for yourself, today is Sunday. I don't care, I don't know what day it is, but Saturday is Sunday. And now you count 6 days, and the 7th day is Shabbos. Another rabbi says, no, we'll do the opposite. Today is Shabbos. And afterwards I'll count 6 days. Mm-hmm. Now, what are the opinions based on? So the Gemara says, it depends on how you look at the Shabbos. If you look at the Shabbos from God's perspective or from man's perspective. Well, let's look at it from God's perspective. When God created the world, first day of the week was not Shabbos. First day of the week was Yom Rishon. God created the light. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. God created 6 mundane days, and then came the Shabbos. So we see that Shabbos comes after 6 days of work. On the other hand, let's look at it from man's perspective. Man came into the world when? Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Erev Shabbos. So what was the first thing he was exposed to? Shabbos. What was his first full day? His first full day was Shabbos. And then he had 6 days of regular weekdays. So that's the debate in the Talmud. Which direction do we start Shabbos? In other words, we got 7 days, but how do we look at it? Do we look at it, we start with Sunday and move up to Shabbos? Or do we start with Shabbos and go on with the rest of the week? Okay? So that is the debate. So now we could say that that's the exact same debate that Moshe and Bezalel had. What do you start with first? Do you start with cleaning yourself up or getting the spiritual boost first? Bezalel said first learn a lot of Torah, put in a lot of spirituality, then you're able to clean yourself up. Moshe said no, you got to clean yourself up and then put in the spirituality. So then put in the Torah. So that's the same idea over here. Do we approach holiness by first preparing ourselves and then approaching the holiness? Therefore, we prepare ourselves 6 days of the week and then we will get the holiness? Or no? Let's look at Shabbos as the first day of the week, as it were. Jump into the Shabbos, get enough out of it, and now we'll have motivation to do the next 6 days of the week properly. So that is the same argument. How do you look at Shabbos? Becomes another way of looking at this. With this, we can now explain another beautiful idea you'll see in sources 4 and sources 5. Source 4 is the mitzvah of Shabbos in the first commandments, and source 5 is a mitzvah Shabbos in the second commandments. They both are pretty similar, except you'll notice one big difference. Why do we keep the Shabbos? So in the fourth source, after it says to keep the Shabbos, verse 11 says, why do you keep the Shabbos? For in 6 days Hashem made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore, Hashem blessed the seventh day and made it holy. So why do we keep Shabbos? Because God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. But then we look at the second commandments, you see it's different. The second commandments, it says to keep the Shabbos, but in verse 15 it says, and remember that you were a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Shabbos. It says keep the Shabbos because Hashem took us out of Egypt. So which one is it? First commandment says keep the Shabbos because God created the world in 6 days, the rest on the seventh. Second time around Hashem says no, keep the Shabbos. You know why? Because I took you out of Egypt. Right? So what's that? It's the same thing. If you think about it, it's the same thing. But now we got to remember something here. The first commandments were given before the sin of the golden calf. The second commandments were given after the sin of the golden calf. And we'll see shortly there's going to be a big difference between that. So the first luchos said, this is what you do. 6 days of the week you work, you rest on the seventh. Why? Because God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. So God is saying, this is the way I want you to look at spirituality. I want you to look at spirituality that for 6 days you work on yourself. Not just physically working in the field, but you're working on yourself. Working on yourself, making yourself a better person. And you're doing the hard work of cleaning out all the negative that's inside of you. And then guess what? When you do that, then you will then be able to appreciate the Shabbos. Then the spiritual energy of Shabbos is going to come into you. You got to be ready for the Shabbos. And you get ready, just like God created the world in 6 days and then made the Shabbos. So you have to do the same thing. You have to look at spiritual development as what? Working on yourself, cleaning out the mess. And then when the Shabbos comes, you will receive to the degree that you prepared, and that'll be the way you grow spiritually. That's how it was the first luchos. And that's the way it really should have been. But then the second luchos came after the sin of the golden calf. And after the sin of the golden calf, things were reversed. Our spiritual strength was compromised. And therefore we say, no. We do what? We have to look at the Jews going out of Egypt, and that's the reason you keep the Shabbos, which will tell us in a minute what's happening. So let's think about it. The same way the Jews left Egypt. When the Jews left Egypt, were they worthy for the great miracles that Hashem did for them when the Jews left Egypt? No, weren't worthy at all. What did Hashem do? He gave us a big spiritual jolt that we didn't deserve, and hopefully that'll move us onto a better course. So that's what he did when he took us out of Egypt. So therefore, he's saying that's the same thing. We're going to look at Shabbos the same way. We're going to look at Shabbos as opposed to preparing yourself for the Shabbos and then getting the spiritual benefit that will fit into how you have cleaned out. It's the reverse. It's like the other opinion in the Gemara that says first Shabbos, then the 6 days. Hashem will give you the spiritual jolt, and then based on that jolt, then you'll be able to clean things up afterwards. Same thing when we went out of Mitzrayim. When we left Mitzrayim, Hashem gave us a holy experience, even though we weren't ready for it, but it helped us clean us up for the 7 weeks after we went out of Mitzrayim. So too Hashem is saying in your daily worship to Hashem, jump into the holiness first and use that holiness as a motivation to become the better person. So now you see a lot of things get explained with this concept. This concept is explained. But we have to take it a little bit more. We're going to understand the history of this. And let's look a little bit more. Let's go back to Egypt. What was supposed to happen in Egypt? We were supposed to be slaves for 400 years. That was the game plan. 400 years. And by staying there for 400 years, that's like the Moshe scenario. We just work on resisting the temptations of Egypt. And we work on just cleaning up and pushing away all the Yetzer Haras, all the negative that's there, clean it all out. And by doing that, when we destroy all those negative physical elements that the Jew had possessed until that time, then the Egyptian exile would have been a 400-year of total purification, and that would have been a complete success. And that would have fit the model of 6 days you work, and then the Shabbos. Purify yourself first, then you're going to be ready to get the Torah, and that was the game plan. However, we know what happened. After 210 years, the Jews couldn't take it anymore. And the truth is, Hashem had to abort the mission, had to stop it earlier, and now what would have to happen, the Jew was not deserving of this holy experience. He wasn't able to destroy the negative. As a matter of fact, he turned it around and became even more negative. So what did Hashem do? Hashem now had to give him, boom, take him out of Egypt with all the fanfare, with all the spiritual experiences, and it turned around. It was now Shabbos first, and then the 6 days of work afterwards. And Hashem was hoping that after the holy experience of Pesach going out, in the next 7 weeks, the Jews would now respond to that holy experience and take that experience to remove certain negative issues, and that's what the whole 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuos are all about. So truthfully, the two events of going out of Mitzrayim and receiving the Torah, we kind of ended up with two systems. What do I mean? When Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, first he gave the Jews the holy experience, like the Shabbos. That's why you'll find in later on in the Torah, Pesach is referred to as Shabbos. The first day of Pesach was referred to as Shabbos. I mean, it had that quality of Shabbos, that Hashem gives you a big spiritual boost, and that will give you the motivation to now clean yourself up. And then, but 7 weeks later, after cleaning themselves up, what happened? Hashem gave them the Torah, which was now an experience based on what they deserved for what they cleaned themselves up for. Hashem could never have given them a Torah the day after they came out of Mitzrayim. So it comes out, Mitzrayim is the first type of Shabbos. The Shabbos that's followed by, that motivates growth. And then Shavuos is the second kind of Shabbos that comes after cleaning yourself up, and you come to that. That was the way things should have been. And they were. Now, here's the point. What was going to happen after Shavuos now? So technically speaking, if the Jews would have kept that level of what they did until receiving the Torah, they would have continued worshiping Hashem way, then the system would have become now, clean yourself up, Hashem gives you a little bit more holiness, clean yourself up, Hashem gives you a little bit more holiness. And had they kept up that momentum, the Jews would have become like Malachim, and Mashiach would have come very soon. The best way is the Moshe Rabbeinu way. Clean, 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 clean up the utensil, boom, Hashem drops in a lot of holiness. Clean some more, Hashem drops some more. That's a very virtuous cycle, right? In Egypt, first we had to alter it. First we had to give us what we don't deserve because we were so low. But based on that, we got motivated to clean, clean, clean. Then Hashem gives us another good gift of spirituality. And now we clean, 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 clean. And it would have been a beautiful, beautiful system. However, and that was a good momentum. However, with the sin of the golden calf, that momentum was broken. That sin of the golden calf, which we will explain shortly why, we reverted back to the old system of development, where you have to first have the holy experience first, and then the cleansing process. Just like first man after he sinned. After he sinned, first came the Shabbos, and that motivated him to be the better person afterwards. So of course we did get a certain degree of forgiveness by the sin of the golden calf, but not enough. Not enough, and the system could be changed. So it's very interesting. What happened is when we received forgiveness after the sin of the golden calf, but the context of our avodas Hashem changed. Let me make this clear now. So you see that Moshe and Betzalel's argument was really reflecting the historical change that was going on over here. In other words, fundamental to our avodas Hashem is, how do we look at it? Do we look at it, I got to first work hard, clean, 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 and then we're ready to get the beautiful spiritual experience, or not? Well, when the system got fixed up initially for the Jews, by their preparing for Shavuos, they were clean, 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 and then you get the spiritual experience of Sinai. And then what are they supposed to do? Clean, 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 get the spiritual experience. That's the best way to do it. But once they sinned with the golden calf, it got changed forever to the other way. We're not able to clean so good. Hashem gave us just 40 days, clean, 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 and they messed up. Work it on your own. They didn't get the Torah yet. But just work. You know, have a little faith, have a little trust in God. They've still going, I see you guys aren't good for this system. Moshe is good for this system, but he's the only one that's good for this system. Everyone else? No. They first need a good jolt of spirituality, then you try to respond to that. But it always depends on how good that jolt of spirituality is. That's not the best way to grow. So now, with this in mind, now let's take another aspect. Now we're going to understand the beauty of what Shabbos is all about. Now, you know, we talked about this in one of the other classes, but not in this way. Every day you daven, Shmona Esrei, the Amida. It's the same Amida, Mariv, Shachris, Mincha. It's the same 18 brachas. Very minor difference for Mincha and Mariv over Shachris, Sim Shalom, Shalom Rav, but basically it's the same davening, mamish. Come to Shabbos, the Friday night Amida is one form, the Shabbos morning is another form, and Shabbos Mincha is a third form. Every Shemona Esrei is different. Look in the city, you'll see totally different. The first Friday night we say Ato Kidashta, and Shabbos morning we say Yisbach Moshe, and by Mincha we say Ato Echad V'Shimcha Echad. We see there's three different Shemona Esreis. It's unheard of. Even on Yontif. Yontif is the same Shemona Esrei every time. Why does Shemona Esreis change? So the rabbis tell us a very important yesod, that there really is three aspects of Shabbos in the Shabbos. You don't look at Shabbos every other day, it's the same day for 24 hours. It's the same aspect. Whatever the aspect is, it's the same. Shabbos is 3 days wrapped into one. And that's how you have to look at the Shabbos. And everything we do on Shabbos reflects that. Let me explain. Really, if you look in our literature, there are three classic Shabboses that are referred to. Shabbos number one is called Shabbos Shel Briat HaOlam. Shabbos of the creation of the world. The first Shabbos, Hashem created the world on Shabbos. That's Shabbos number one. What's Shabbos number two? Shabbos number two was when we received the Torah. That was on a Shabbos. Now, to be even more technical about this, the first Shabbos of the world came at what time of the day? The first Shabbos of the world came at what time of the day? At night.
Right, yeah.
Friday night.
Yeah.
So the first Shabbos started Friday night. That's good. That's when Shabbos will start, Friday night. But wait a minute. The second Shabbos is when God gave us the Torah at Sinai. When did God give us the Torah at Sinai? On a Shabbos, but what time? In the morning. So Shabbos morning. So Friday night, that's the second. Third Shabbos is the Yom Shekula Shabbos. Shabbos L'Asad Level. The Shabbos of Mashiach comes. Shabbos in the world to come. That's also called Shabbos. There's three aspects of Shabbos. Okay? Now, let's go through these three and see where they fit in Shabbos. And this is important to know where our minds should be on Shabbos. Shabbos is not just, it's a big mistake people make. Shabbos is not, it don't work, and you stay with your family and have a good meal. That's very superficial understanding of Shabbos. Shabbos is the day of the greatest spiritual growth that we could have. And therefore, it's a whole strategy, how you map out the Shabbos. So let's begin. First Shabbos, the creation of the world. What does that mean? It's the Shabbos of the first man. Well, how do we explain the Shabbos of the first man? That the first experience Adam had after his sin was experience the holy Shabbos, and then with that holy experience, you move on and clean up your act and get rid of negative qualities. That was the first Shabbos. Now let's go to the Shabbos of receiving the Torah. When did we receive the Torah? Only after 7 weeks of purifying ourselves and working on our negative traits and turning them into positives. Then God gave us the Torah. So that's the opposite. But what about the last one? Now so far it's been like this. God, either the first Shabbos, God gives you, boom, a gift of a spiritual jolt, and that motivates you to develop. Or you develop, you work on yourself, clean yourself out, and based on how good you develop, you get a certain spiritual gift that matches what you did. And that was Sinai. But what about the Shabbos, Yom Shekula Shabbos, the Shabbos in the future? How's that going to look? Well, the rabbis say it's a little bit of combination of the first two. How could it be a combination of the first two? So on the one sense, when Mashiach comes, we have to prepare for it. We have to make our vessels clean and pure to receive it. And get rid of all the negative elements that make us ready for the great spiritual gift that Hashem is going to give us at this time. And that's what Mashiach's all about. Mashiach says, get rid of your narishkeit and come to the full extent you can to experience Hashem. So that's good. So that has the aspect of the giving of the Torah of Shabbos. Clean yourself up. But then there's one more point. But the revelations that will come at the time of Mashiach will be so great. It'll be beyond what we could have even prepared for. In other words, if on a normal week you prepare yourself, let's say from 1 to 10 you can prepare yourself. So if on a normal week you prepare yourself as a 6, so you get 6 levels of Kedusha. You get exactly what you prepared for. Mashiach is going to be that no matter what you prepared, you cleaned yourself out, you made yourself a better person. Listen, the Narish came to this world are nothing. And you really deserve a certain amount of spirituality to come into your life. When Mashiach comes, that amount you're going to get is 1,000,000 times more than what you prepared for. If you don't prepare at all, you're not going to get anything. But as opposed to the Torah Sinai Shabbos, where they got from Hashem to the degree that they prepared, when Mashiach comes, Hashem's going to give you way beyond what the preparation is. So on the one hand, it's because you cleaned up you get, but you get much more than what you deserve to get, and that's like giving you a spiritual experience before the growth. Do you hear? Hear what's going on over here? We have 3 systems. We have the system of the creation of the world, where Hashem says, first I'm going to give you Shabbos. With that great spiritual jolt, you'll be motivated to clean up your act. That's system 1. Then you have to give me the Torah, system 2. You have 7 weeks to prepare yourself, clean yourself up. Then you're going to get a Torah Sinai based on how well you cleaned yourself up. That's system number 2. The end of time is system 3, which is combining 1 and 2 together. It's like number 2 that you're not going to get unless you prepare. But it's like number 1 that Hashem gives you more than what you deserve, beyond what you had. And that's what Mashiach is going to be all about. Okay, those are the 3 Shabbos of creation. And that is what every Shabbos is a microcosm of. Every Shabbos is a microcosm of this. Let's start again. Friday night. What are you supposed to be feeling Friday? What is, if you feel it or not, this is what is happening spiritually. If you like it or not, this is what's happening spiritually. Friday night, you come into the Shabbos, and it's like the first Shabbos of creation. If you deserve it or not, prepared or not, forget it. Hashem is zapping you with a tremendous aura of holiness. Now, of course, you have to do a little preparation. If you're working in your factory Friday night, you ain't going to feel it. You got to at least stop working, go to Shul, a minimum. That's a minimum. That's not even adequate preparation. But something, you got to be something that when you the experience there, you're at least in the right place. If you're not even in town, you're not getting anything. So the basics: just stop working, go to Shul, be at home. Okay, maybe you weren't such a good Jew during the week. Maybe not. But guess what? The Shabbos itself has that incredible ability to take over the person, and it will motivate you. It will bring out the holiness that you could develop. So Friday night is supposed to just blow you away. Wow. Oh, Hashem, that was so beautiful. You just gave me that. I'm motivated to be better. Now, what happened? So that's the first Shabbos, and that's what we say in Kabbalah Shabbos. We look in the words of Kabbalah Shabbos by Lechad Dodi. It says, Hisna'ari me'afar kumi. Wake up, get out of the dirt. That's all I did. You're in the dirt the whole week. You look after physical things. You're a physical person. Get out of there. You're not that kind of person. Right? Likras Shabbat Malkah. Go out to greet the queen. Because you're about to get something you don't deserve. It's beyond what you deserve, but it's meant to motivate you to be a better person. So it's a holy experience first, motivates you to start thinking, preparing, and start to get rid of some of those negative elements. And that's what you have to start doing Friday night, in response to that beautiful Shemos. Now again, if you don't prepare a minimal amount on Erev Shabbos, you're not going to feel this. You say, Rabbi, how come I don't feel this? The answer is you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing on Erev Shabbos, which we've talked about a lot. If you don't remember that, go to our series on preparing for Shabbos. You got to stop working not just a minute before the candles go on. You have to stop working a little before that. So all kinds of things you have to do to get ready, but that's not called getting ready for what you're getting. It's just getting ready to get anything. So that's Friday night. So now that you're working on yourself, that's why you just don't Friday night come home from Shul and go to sleep. That's defeating the whole purpose of what the Shabbos was meant to give you. You're supposed to say, wow, Hashem, I feel something very special inside of myself. I'm going to respond by working on something, doing something that is beneficial, whatever that is, to make myself a little bit of a better person. If you do that, comes Shabbos morning. Now we come to the second aspect. Second aspect is like the Jews receiving the Torah at Sinai, and that's what we talk about in the Shemon Esrei. Moshe was happy with the gift that Hashem gave him, the beautiful crown that Hashem gave him at Sinai, where Hashem told us to keep the Shabbos. Shabbos morning, you've already made a little degree of preparation on your own, so you're ready for the next level of the holiness of Shabbos, or now Hashem gives you based on what you've been preparing. From Friday night through Shabbos morning, you've been doing something. You've been working on yourself, and Hashem now gives you a next level of holiness based on what you've accomplished. Right? So it's preparation first, and then get the next higher level of Shabbos. So as the Shabbos moves on, it gets holier. That's why, for example, we know that the Shabbos, that the morning of Shabbos is holier than the first, and in halacha, it has to play itself out where you have a nicer meal Shabbos lunch than Friday night. Those people have a fancy Friday night meal and just get off with a slim milchik lunch. They're totally not reading the spiritual energies that are happening. Though eating and everything is just paralleling what's going on in the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, the holier part of Shabbos is Shabbos morning, not Friday night. So because Friday night you just got a little gift from God, but you didn't deserve any of that. Now you're working on deserving the next gift, which is going to be a bigger gift. It's Shabbos morning. The food is just a metaphor. There's more food, meaning there's more spirituality. That's what's going on, yes?
Why do you stand on Friday night and sit on Saturday? Because Friday night is supposed to be...
Friday night you're giving a testimony that God created the world, that's all. That's all. Like, it's a question of testimony, that's all.
More respect, like
No. Friday night you're giving a testimony that God created the world, that's all. There's no aspect of Kiddush the next day. Not biblically. It's no technical reason. It's nothing to do with this. It's nothing to do with this. So I know a lot of people don't know that. Friday night dinner is a big thing. It is. I'm not saying it's not a big thing. But Shabbos lunch is even bigger. You have to know there's a rule in spirituality. It's a foolproof rule. The more that the time is more spiritual, the Yetzer works hard for us not to believe it and not to take advantage of it. So if the least spiritual part of Shabbos is Friday, the Yetzer will let more people do Friday night. You'll see that even people who are not so religious still get together Friday night. Where do you see the next level of religious? How do you keep Shabbos day? Shabbos day, the lunch. What do you mean? People go, some people even go to Shul. Some people don't even go to Shul Saturday morning. They're sleeping in Shabbos morning. Why? It's a much holier time. Yetzer Hara wants to fight you even harder now. Fighting you even harder. And then after Shul, you have to have an elaborate lunch. It's not the lunch, it's not the food. That's just telling what the whole meal should be more elaborate. It's a whole meal where you're experiencing a bigger dose of Kedusha because you worked on it over the Friday night and into the Shabbos morning. And that's why we're in Shul for 3 hours. We're working on ourselves. During the week, quick, 1, 2, 3, 45 minutes, you're out of Shul. What's the Shabbos morning business? Whoa, lots to do. We're working on ourselves. It's not just saying words and turning pages. We're being a better Jew, cleaning out the mess even more. Then Hashem gives you the gift of even more holiness at that time.
I feel it like that.
But we're not done. Then you come to the holiest of holiest parts of the Shabbos. The holiest part is the afternoon. And you can tell it's so holy because half the Jews are sleeping. And who even bothers to come to Shul at all Friday afternoon? They're going to their shtibels on the street. Because Nebuch, they can't walk a few feet to a shul. Mamish, we're handicapped Jews. Because we ate so much shulant in Kishke at 1 o'clock. I don't have the koyach at 6 o'clock to walk 5 minutes to my shul. Let me go to the house right next door. I can just roll out of bed and plop onto the couch in the shtibel next door to daven over there. At least you're davening. You think you're doing well. But to eat shalosh shudas, the third meal. Now you're going to the world of Mashiach. The world of Mashiach, where it's a combination of the both. We've prepared ourselves. As the Shabbos goes on, instead of sleeping the whole afternoon, we're learning, we're working, we're developing ourselves more and more and more. then Hashem says, okay, now I'm supposed to give you, but now I'm going to give you spirituality more than what you prepared. Even beyond that. Right? And that's what the last part is. That's the last part of Shabbos. Right? And that's such an important part of Shabbos. You can get so much more. So therefore, who goes to Shalosh Shudas? When you're singing Smiros and Shalosh Shudas, that's when Hashem's supposed to whack you over the head with the biggest dose of spirituality. More than what you deserve for what you did on that Shabbos. That's the system. And since there's so much to be gained, there's such a Yetzer Hara to tell you, don't be part of that. Don't be part. Do anything, but don't go to Shalosh Shudas, please. Don't get close to God. Because if you get close to God, He's going to give you more than you ever got in your life. Yetzer says, you're tired, go to sleep. Go to the shtibel and run home and read the newspaper of Michigan. But that's not what that's the real Shabbos. Those are the three aspects of Shabbos. So that is what we're supposed to. This becomes this whole idea now of work, benefit, work. It goes through the entire Shabbos in these three ways. Beautiful, beautiful. But now we got to talk about one more thing to fit everything together, and it connects to last week's parsha. The last piece that the SHMOT speaks out. There's one component that has to exist for us to be able to do this. It all sounds so beautiful. However, there's some people who are listening to this and saying, I don't buy this at all, Rabbi. I don't believe any of this stuff. I don't feel it. I don't know it. It doesn't exist. And Shabbos, I work hard. I want to sleep. Don't make me feel so guilty that there's so much to be done on Shabbos. Right? But there's an important quality that has to exist. And there's a medrash that talks about this. And it talks about our overall relationship with Hashem. And our overall relationship with Hashem, there's one important quality that we must have, and that is the quality of humility. Now the medrash says, and I didn't give it to you, although there's another medrash, says like this, that nowadays, we don't feel so comfortable with Hashem. And we're compared to a bride who is still unfamiliar with her husband. When we first get married, bride's a little bit uncomfortable being with the husband, right? But in the future, when Mashiach comes, we're going to be like a bride that's totally familiar and at home with her husband. And that's what we're going to feel with Hashem when Mashiach comes. Now, what's going on over here? So the answer is, to a certain degree, the experience of holiness that Hashem gives us, we know that we didn't do everything to earn it. Whatever Hashem gives us in terms of spiritual gifts, there's a certain amount, we know Hashem's given us more than we really worked on. And there's a certain degree of shame that's involved with that. Whenever you're getting something you don't deserve, there's a certain degree of shame with that. We feel that we really didn't deserve this experience. But there's going to come a time, in Mashiach's time, that we'll be able to do a lot to deserve the experience, and we'll feel much more comfortable with Hashem. But there is this idea of feeling humility. So now let's put all the pieces together and start to answer whatever outstanding questions are still there. When Hashem told Moshe to build the Mishkan, now what did Hashem tell Moshe? Build the Mishkan. Remember we said, this is how we started off. Source 3. Hashem commands Moshe. He says, Moshe, build the Mishkan. And then he says, keep Shabbos. It was Mishkan and then Shabbos. When was that command? It was before the Jews sinned with the Chet HaEgel. Before the sin. And therefore, it was, what could the Jew do? The Jew could first build the Mishkan, work on our spiritual development, and then have Shabbos. Then you deserve to get the benefits of Shabbos. And that was the structure of Jewish worship. Build your Mishkan, clean out the mess, be the person you're supposed to be. Then I'm going to give you the Shabbos. Then I'm commanding you about the Shabbos. And Shabbos is the total benefit of God's spirituality. That's what was in Parshas Kisisa before the sin of the golden calf. But by the time Moshe gets around in this week's Parsha, and it's time to give us the orders which were never told to us yet, that was after the sin of the golden calf. And we already said, after the golden calf, the system turns. Then what do you need first? First Shabbos, and then the 6 days of the week. So Moshe first commands us for Shabbos, and then he says, build the Mishkan. So when Hashem told Moshe, build the Mishkan, then the Shabbos, it wasn't just an itinerary of events. He was telling him the way of Avodas Hashem before the sin of the golden calf. Work on yourself, then Hashem will give you the spiritual gift. You can build a Mishkan, you can work on cleaning yourself, and you'll be able to then receive a spiritual gift based on what you deserve. And Moshe knew that that's the way it should be. He intuitively always felt that way. And when he talked with Vayakhel, that was before the sin of the golden calf. But after the sin of the golden calf, Moshe understood that the system has changed. You have first jump into the holy experience first, called Shabbos, and then build the Mishkan. So that's why the order was changed. Okay? Now, why did Moshe have to go through the whole review of the Shabbos before he had to tell about the vineyard Mishkan? Just say you can't work on Shabbos. Still, what do I need to know all this Shabbos business for? So we have to say one more point. And that we now can look at source number 10. The rabbi said like this: a person who brings a korban olah, a burnt offering, a person in the temple brings a burnt offering, then the reward is the reward of a burnt offering. That's what you get rewarded for. If a person brings a korban chatos, which is a more extensive offering, he gets rewarded for a korban chatos. If a person brings a korban shlomim, he gets rewarded for a korban shlomim. Okay. But then he says the last thing. He says, what if a person comes with no korban, but he comes with a dato shvela? He comes with a tremendous sense of humility and humbleness before God. What is that considered like? Talmud says it's considered like he brought all the korbanot. What does that mean? And why is that so? Well, what's the ultimate purpose of a korban? Well, that's next week's parsha. But basically, the ultimate purpose of a korban, from the word korab, to get close to God. So the greatest way for a person to bridge the gap between himself and God, well, you bring a korban, and we've discussed in the past why bringing the korban brings you close to God. And each way in their own way. But the greatest way to get close to God is by having a sense of humility and humbleness of who you are and what God is. And we'll see in a minute that even brings you closer than anything. The more humble you are, the closer you can get to God. A person has that sense of humbleness, truly has brought all the sacrifices, and has brought himself much closer to Hashem. Now we go back to that source number at the bottom of the first page. Chu me'itchem truma. Go take for yourself truma l'Hashem kol nediv libo. Anyone who has a philanthropic heart, yivieho, bring it as trumas Hashem. And we ask the question, what's the yivieho? Bring it. What's the it? What's the it? And what's this all supposed to mean? So listen carefully to this idea. Very often when people give donations and are gracious, people are prepared to open up their hearts. Nice people, no complaints. Nice people, they open up their hearts, they open up their pocketbooks like on Purim. Guy asked, Mishlochim come, you give 18, you're giving nicely, very nice. There's only one thing that's still missing. We think, my, what a wonderful man I am. That I'm a generous man. We think that this money is mine, the resources are mine, and I did a wonderful thing. I gave up something of myself for a particular cause. It's a poor man. And he says, my resources and what I have, it's not mine at all. It all is Hashem. Hashem gave it to me so that I should be able to give. And that's what it says in Pirkei Avos, the last source 11. It says, Tein lo mishalcha, give to you from your own, ki ata shalo, because really what you have which is yours is shalo, it's really his. It says, give him of that which is his. For you and what you have are his. Give what's his away, not what's yours, what's his. So the person who really understands things realizes it's not like you're giving away what's yours and you're giving it to someone else. Rather, you and everything you already have is already belonging to Hashem. Your entire existence is because of Hashem. So on this level, listen carefully, on this level, not only are you giving to the cause, let's say there's a cause, a good cause, a yeshiva, an orphanage, it's a good cause, but you're also giving away the nedivus. You're giving away the sense of you thinking that you're a philanthropist. You're giving away your philanthropic idea of who you thought you were. That's what you have to give away as well. You understand that the capability of giving was also given to you by Hashem. And you're giving that away as well. And that's what the pasuk says. Oh, says the Shem Yisrael. He says, Kol nadiv libo. Anyone with a gracious heart, Yiviyah, bring your gracious heart. Give your gracious heart away. Don't say I'm the gracious guy. You give that away too. When we give, we think we're only giving the money, but we're still gracious people. Look what fine man I am. You know what? Take that attitude and you give that to Hashem too. And you don't even keep the attitude that I'm such a great giver. You know why? Because you didn't give anything, because it all belonged to Hashem. Now that's a very deep concept, and we don't like to hear that. We don't like to hear that. But in the world of truth, that's the absolute truth. Now that requires a lot of humility. A humble person will be able to understand that even the possibility to give was given to him by Hashem. Not just that you say, oh, I'm rewarded that I give, I was a nice guy. No, my ability to want to give and to be gracious is a gift from God. And that is yours also. And that's what the extra Yiviyah. Of course you're giving the money, but give the attitude away. Don't hold back. You're giving money away. Look, I'm not holding back the money, but I'm still holding back that I think I'm a great guy. Give that away too. That's what you have to do that. Now this was very, very important if you wanted to build a Mishkan. Why? Because remember, in the Mishkan, you had to have a very great recognition that everything you have is from Hashem. It wasn't good enough to build a building down here where a person thinks, these are my resources, and I'm good enough to to put up a high-rise apartment for God in this world. That's not enough to bring God into this world. If you think, I'm a nice, generous guy that made a shul for Hashem, that's not enough. The deepest thought that makes it capable for Hashem to live in your world is when the person knows that his whole existence is a gift from Hashem. To the degree that you are humble, to that degree, Hashem can live with you. Until you know that your whole existence comes from Hashem, there's a certain amount of space that you are keeping for yourself, and you say, God, stay out of this part. This part is mine. I'm going to give you a little, but there's a part I ain't sharing with you. As long as you think I'm the one who gave, that means there's a part of me that you have nothing to do with, that to that degree you're not connecting to Hashem. That's what saying a humble person is like he brought all the korbanot. That he brought everything, because there's no gap between Hashem. This is a very difficult concept, because the human being does not want to give up his independence so quickly. We think by doing that, there's nothing left for me, what do I have? But we're not confronting the real truth that's there. Now that is a real humble person. And therefore not all philanthropists are that way. Many, a lot of people give and they expect something in return. They expect some kind of couple. Listen, I did this and I expect, this and that and whatever. And because after all, I was nice and I was this. The other person says, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Even what I gave. They really want to give. It's God gave me that gift. If Hashem didn't want me to give, I wouldn't be giving. But Hashem made that I like to give.
Big deal.
Now, why is this so important by the Mishkan? Because the Mishkan was supposed to be an atonement for the sin of the golden calf. And how did the sin of the golden calf come about? Because the Jews lacked humility and humbleness. When Moshe didn't come down, they figured, I have to know the answers. And that's what we talked about last week with Amalek. Remember we said Amalek is the same gematria of Ram, which is arrogance. So that was a little bit of Amalek, was in us with the Chet HaEgel. We said, we got to do something. Now Hashem said categorically you can't make any graven images. Hashem said wait 40 days for Moshe to come down. Moshe said wait 40 days for me to come down. So what did they do? They said, what should they have done? If they had the right amount of humility, how should they have responded to the golden calf? They should have said one thing. Aaron, we just want a question to ask you. One question. Moshe is coming down in 4 days. He hasn't come down. We're a little bit concerned. Aaron, what should we do? Then Aaron would say, whatever he would say, wait another day. Okay, right, wait another day. Finished. That's all they should have done if you have humility. But instead they say, listen, we're not a bunch of spiritual midgets. We can decide what we want to do on our own. Moshe's not here. We're going to do something. What are we going to do? Well, what are we going to do? We're going to build a golden calf. It's a chutzpah. But it's a chutzpah that comes from where? Arrogance. Not having humility to know. You know what Hashem did for you till now? Can't you just wait a little bit? That was the test, and that was the failure. So this building is supposed to atone for it. So how are you going to atone for it? You got to have that nedivas libo. You have to give away yourself. And how do you do that? By being very humble. How do you become very humble? by saying, even my ability to give to you is a gift from you, Hashem. I don't have anything. And Hashem says, now you've done the real tshuva. Now you're being really humble. Now I feel comfortable in your place. So now that you come this far, we can wrap it up with the last idea. So now when Moshe had to give us the whole commandment of the Ark, of the Mishkan, what's the first thing he says? Shabbos. It's not just a question like Rashi says, which is true, that you can't desecrate the Shabbos to build the Mishkan. Moshe is saying you got to understand the whole building of the Mishkan rotates around Shabbos. It's not just the fact you're going to get the spiritual jolt from Hashem and you're going to respond to it, but now much deeper. The real secret of Shabbos. What is it that Shabbos really gives the person more than anything else? A person works a whole week long. What does he mistakenly think? He thinks, I did it all. That's why it says, Sheishes Yomim Teyaseh Molocha. 6 days of the week, the work is done. Not that you do the work. What Shabbos is supposed to teach you is that, listen to Mr. Big Shot, who just made $50,000 this week, you didn't make a penny. The work was done. You think you did the work? Be a little bit more humble and realize that Hashem gave you the ability to work. Well, I'm very alacritous, I'm very shrewd business, that. Who gave it to you? How come this guy isn't? Because I am, and he's not. What do you mean because you are not? How did it come that you became? What do you mean? I'm just smart. Well, who made you so smart? The other guy's not. What did you do? I want to exactly tell me, what did you do to make yourself so smart? Oh, well, I went to university this. Well, who gave you the ability to be able to memorize and get good scores? You got to go back and admit it. It's God that did it all for you. Admit it. That's all Hashem wants you to do. He's not saying you can't work. He's not saying you can't make the money. He's not saying you can't enjoy the money. He said one thing. You can't enjoy a thing that you're the one who did it. That's what Shabbos is all about. Then it says, right? It says when you come to that point, you got work piled up to the ceiling. It's Friday afternoon. The Gemara says you have to act as kol malachta asur. All the work is done. Well, how does that happen? All the work is not done. Motzei Shabbos, all the work's going to be there. The difference is, it depends on who's doing the work. If you think it's only you, and if only you do, it's only going to get done, and that's what you think the last week was, that's what you think the next week's going to be, then you don't think the work's done. You understand that as much as you're doing anything, you're not doing anything. Hashem is doing all the work. So as far as we're concerned, the work's been done even before you started. The whole idea of Shabbos is to say, take it easy, Charlie. As great as your responsibilities are, and as much as you think you do, you got to realize one thing. There's something else that's really the source of everything, and that all comes from Hashem. That's what it's saying, Shabbos. Shabbos means stop. Stop thinking that you're the man. And that's the real point of Shabbos. If you keep that Shabbos, so it's not a question of Shabbos, you can't work on Shabbos and building the Mishkan. It's saying you can't really build a Mishkan unless you really understand how to keep Shabbos. You're trying to build a dwelling that God feels comfortable in. God cannot be comfortable with dwelling with a big shot. You want to make a place for God, you got to make room for a place for God. And you can't make a place for God unless you're keeping Shabbos the way the Torah is telling you to keep Shabbos. 6 days of the week, the work is done. And now comes Shabbos, and that's why it says it's Shabbos Shabbaton. It's a Shabbos of all Shabbos. That even the relaxing is there's nothing for you to relax for. You're even relaxing from relaxing. Shabbat Shabbaton. Have Shabbos from relaxing. You don't have to relax if you worked hard. You didn't really work at all, mister. You didn't really work at all. You think you worked hard? I did all the heavy lifting. You know, like you have these big derricks over here, these big used things, the big things, and if you would take a picture, then you have the worker at the bottom. He takes that big scaffold, he just moves it into place, Now, if you wouldn't have the picture of the derrick on top, you think the guy's a strong man. Look what he picks up. Look at this guy. He picked up this huge 500-pound thing. You don't realize it was this little derrick with this little thing holding it by a string, keeping it going. So you think I worked so hard I have to rest. What do you mean you have to rest? Rest from your resting. You didn't do anything. It's already hard. This is where we get into the other class on Thursday, the idea of Yediyah and Bechira. Thinking, did you accomplish or no, you didn't accomplish it. Hashem did this. So this concept of humility was very important after the sin of the golden calf. Before the sin of the golden calf, we didn't have to talk so much about Shabbos. It wasn't that important. It didn't have to come first. You could build a Mishkan and then talk about Shabbos. Because you could work on yourself, and then you'll get the benefits of Shabbos. But now we're dealing with people with a lot of chutzpah, a lot of arrogance. So now we're saying, you know what, you got to have Shabbos first. You have to have a certain degree of humility. If you have a certain degree of humility, then you'll be able to receive the gifts of Shabbos, and then you'll be able to use that to work and build up the rest of the week. Now let me explain one thing before, the last thing before we finish. The Chovas HaLevavos tells us the definition of humility. And a lot of people make a mistake, and they think humility, I don't want to be humble, because a humble person thinks he's nothing. So the Chovas HaLevavos explains the difference between, proper humility and not proper humility. The Chovas HaLevavos says you have to reflect and realize how much more special you are than anything else in the world. You look at the cat, the dog, the mouse, the monkey, the elephant, and all the animals in the world. And realize, God endowed me with incredible, incredible qualities. I'm way beyond any creature in this world. I'm a super being. And that's very good to feel that way. But then you have to say just one thing. And all that superiority is a gift from Hashem. And that's humility. Humility is not to say I'm a nothing, I'm a garnished. If somebody compliments you, you don't say it was nothing. No, it was something. You really did something. Guys, that was a great job you did. You don't ignore the compliment that was paid. You just add one more clause. Say, thank you very much. I couldn't have done it without Hashem. And now you can feel good, but give credit to where credit is. And that really is what Shabbos is about. And therefore all these gifts of Shabbos, all this talk about the 3 levels of Shabbos and how you stop working and you get a gift of Shabbos you don't deserve, and then you work the next morning and then you get based on what you do deserve, and then Shalosh Shudas, Hashem's going to give you more that you don't deserve. None of that is not applicable if you don't have humility. If you think it's 6 days of work, but I do the work. 6 days I work, and I rest on the 7th. Then you know what? You're not going to feel anything that we're talking about on Shabbos. But if you say 6 days of the week, Hashem is doing the work, and now I'm resting from the resting, and I'm refocusing, and on Shabbos comes a gift. You know what the gift is? For me not to realize what kind of a stupid idiot I was. To think that I was really doing it, and to realize I wasn't doing it, then that by definition gets you closer to Hashem. And when you get closer to Hashem, then Hashem has all kinds of gifts to give you. So if you're asking, how come I don't feel any of this tremendous stuff on Shabbos? One answer, because you're too arrogant. You may be generous, you may give a lot of tzedakah, but you still think it's you. And if you don't have that humility, then all these things do not kick into place. And that's why before Moshe, that's all because we sinned the golden calf. If we wouldn't have sinned the golden calf, it wouldn't be a problem. But as a result of the golden calf, we all have this arrogance. And we have to deal with that arrogance. Shabbos counteracts that. So therefore, a person's got to have the humility to say, you know what? I can't walk away from my job at noon. As the halacha really says, we really should try to stop working by noon and start getting ready for the Shabbos. I can't do that. How am I going to make a living? It used to be, if you don't work on Shabbos, you can make a living. Well, really, you have to stop even before Shabbos. Well, how can I do that? You got to be humble. Who's been making a living till now? It's been me. Then you? Sorry, buddy. Shabbos, you and Hashem ain't got any room together. There's no mishkan. So that's the beauty of Shabbos. Hashem should help us in this week. Let me just end with a story. Beautiful story. Maybe we'll bring home the point. True story. Something about 20 years ago. It happened in Mexico. A true story. True story. There was a fellow, non-religious family. Take a minute. Non-religious family. And the husband was trying to make a living, and he wasn't so successful. He tried this, tried that. He was trying to be a businessman, never really. Then he decided taking a huge project to build this huge 6-story structure. And in Spanish, I might be mispronouncing it, so all the Spanish people will forgive me. El Hierro. Is that close?
Ingeniero.
Oh, see, I can never do it. What? Say it again. Ingeniero, which means?
Engineer.
Well, no. What's the word for iron in Spanish?
For iron?
Iron. What?
Metal.
Okay. Anyway, my book said different. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to argue. Anyway, he gave it a name like a real big storing structure, El Hierro, whatever it's called. Okay. Anyway, and they're building the structure, and he really was way in over beyond his ability here. He shelled out $2 million, and of course things weren't working right. Slowdowns, this, that. It wasn't getting finished up, and now he's paying interest on the mortgage, this and that, and he is slowly sinking a terrible debt financially. Anyway, one week the wife says to the husband, she gets this advertisement to go on a Shabbos retreat that they're going to learn about Yiddishkeit. So the wife asks the husband to go on this retreat. And they go on this retreat. This story took place October 1995. And this is almost 20 years, this story. So they went on this retreat, and they were not religious, but the retreat, they got very impressed. It was a very exciting experience. It was a real Shabbos, And the wife said, we should try to keep Shabbos once. So the husband says, okay, one time we'll keep Shabbos. So the wife says, okay, which Shabbos? So say it'll be this Shabbos. We'll keep this coming Shabbos. It's going to be the first Shabbos. We're going to keep one Shabbos. At least to the degree they knew Shabbos. You don't work. At least you don't work. You make Kiddush. You may not know everything about Shabbos. We're not going to work. Meanwhile, he's been trying to sell, since he's been doing so poorly, he's been trying to sell this huge building that he just can't get rid of. That the structure is up, and a lot of it, but just not finished off. And it's not selling. And he says he's going to keep this Shabbos. Anyway, some people from China, or Japan, place wherever, they come to Mexico and take a look at this structure. And they come in on a Thursday. Come on Thursday to look, they come back on Friday, this and that. The agent calls the husband Friday afternoon and says, the Japanese are ready to buy your structure. Okay, they're going to buy it, and the terms aren't bad. You're still going to lose money, but at least you're going to get out of this with your shirt. He says, fine, good. So the wife here says, yeah, make sure they bring it before Shabbos. Okay. For signing. So you get a call about a half an hour before Shabbos. The agent says, sorry, there's been a little details with the lawyer, this and that. They'll be by the house 9 o'clock at night to sign the deal. And the husband's going, and the wife's looking, says, you promised to keep the Shabbos. So all I got to do is just put my name. That's not keeping the Shabbos. No writing on Shabbos and keeping the Shabbos. He says, listen, dear, but this has been a noose over our neck. We got to, we haven't been keeping Shabbos till 9. I promise I'll keep 10 Shabbos afterwards. Let me just write on this one. She says, I'm telling you, you promised me you're going to keep this Shabbos, and this is the Shabbos we have to keep. If we don't keep the Shabbos, we're never going to keep Shabbos. It's not that. But the wife, how a wife can be, if she's a right wife, she says, listen, I don't want to look at you as a liar. You promised, that's it. So the husband takes a big swallow. He says, agent, I'm sorry. It's my Sabbath. I can't sign it. Okay. 10 minutes later, the agent calls. The Japanese said, they see you're not interested in selling. They're going back to Japan. They said, maybe in the future, but this deal is off. So the deal was off. And the wife is, very exciting to keep the Shabbos. And the husband turns to the wife and says, this Shabbos better be enjoyable because it just cost me $12 million. Anyway, Monday morning, October 9th, 9 o'clock in the morning, 1995, there was an earthquake in Mexico, 7.6 on the Richter scale. Every building in that city in Mexico was totally flattened, except for El Hierro, because it was built with such good structuring, anti-earthquake. It was the only thing that stood. He gets a call from the mayor of the city. The mayor of the city says, we're desperate. Every community building has been destroyed. We'll buy the building for you name the price, and we'll buy it from you. For you. And he sold the building for that price. We say in the Smiros, Ki Eshmera Shabbat, if I keep the Shabbos, Kel Yishmereni the Shabbos, God protects me. Now, what was the bottom line? This fellow had to have a certain degree of humility. You have to have humility to say that I got to stop before Shabbos. Hashem's going to take care of it. So we look at this, okay, that's amazing, but you have to remember, what should the guy feel proud about? Nothing. Because even his ability to say no and not sell it was a gift from Hashem too. And we who are more observant, we figure, well, I don't have those challenges. We have bigger challenges than the secular Jew has. I'm telling you, bigger challenges. Because what the secular Jew has to give up to keep Shabbos is less than what we have to do to keep Shabbos the way we should keep Shabbos. We're not talking, to go from a Shabbos where I don't work, but I sleep and eat and make it into a physical Shabbos, to turn it into a real spiritual Shabbos, you'll find more Orthodox Jews not willing to do that than a secular Jew willing to try Shabbos. You tell an Orthodox Jew, live a Shabbos without sleeping the whole day. Live a Shabbos, come on time for davening. Live a Shabbos, you're learning hours and hours. Learning a Shabbos, you're working on yourself. You learn a Shabbos where you don't eat so much food. The guy will say, you crazy? You take away my whole Shabbos? I have nothing if I don't have that. That's what's missing. The humility. Hashem should help us that we should be able in this parsha to get this humility and develop the system of growth that is only meant to give us the greatest benefits until Mashiach comes. Amen.